The rain had a rhythm to it, a kind of moody percussion against the windshield of Elon's Model S. Downtown Austin was quiet, unusually so for a Thursday night. The storm had driven most people indoors, but Elon, always the outlier, had stayed late at a panel discussion about the future of sustainable architecture. He wasn't scheduled to attend. It had been a spontaneous decision, driven less by interest in the topic and more by a restlessness that hadn't left him for days. It was nearing midnight. His security detail had already peeled off hours ago, assuming he'd retreat directly to his hotel after the event. Instead, he'd wander the streets a bit, unguarded, half looking for inspiration and half hoping to find something, though he didn't know what. That's when he saw the boy. The bus stop was poorly lit, the fluorescent bulbs overhead flickering with the weariness of the infrastructure that housed them. The boy sat on the bench with his back hunched slightly forward, elbows on his knees, a soggy backpack clutched tightly to his chest like a life vest. His hoodie was too thin for the rain, soaked through. His jeans clung to his legs, and the soles of his shoes flared slightly outward, exposing wear and tear that suggested they were on their last days of function. He looked maybe 15, 16 at most, but was hard to tell. The rain distorted everything, details, sound, time. Elon slowed the car almost instinctively. He wasn't usually impulsive with strangers, not in that way. But there was something about this scene, something that gnawed at him. Maybe it was the boy's stillness. Not slumped in defeat, but almost frozen, like a statue. Watching, waiting, enduring. There was a tension in his posture that said, "I don't trust anything, but I haven't given up yet." Elon recognized that tension. He had once carried it in his own shoulders. He drove past at first. Not far, just half a block. But even as the wheels kept moving, his mind stayed behind. You can't save everyone, he told himself. The city was full of stories like this, kids left to the mercy of luck, weather, and whatever scraps of humanity they could find. He'd donated millions to shelters, housing programs, youth centers. He'd been to fundraisers and spoken about systemic solutions. But this wasn't about policy. This wasn't abstract. This was a boy, alone, drenched, waiting for a bus that might never come. Elon made a U-turn. The tires splashed through a shallow puddle as he pulled back up to the curb. The car's quiet hum contrasted sharply with the harsh hiss of the rain. The boy didn't flinch, didn't look up. Elon rolled down the passenger window, slightly. Rain speckled the interior. "You have somewhere to go." The boy slowly lifted his head. His face was angular, pale beneath the shadows. His dark hair was plastered to his forehead. His eyes, wide, cautious, met Elon's with a kind of silent interrogation. He studied the man behind the wheel, as if trying to figure out whether this was some setup, some trick, or just another person about to offer pity and drive away. "Not really," he said after a long pause. His voice was low, quiet, but steady. It lacked panic. It lacked drama. "Just the simple truth," said plainly. Elon didn't ask anything else. He didn't need to. The situation was obvious enough, and the boy's pride was intact enough that probing would only wound it. He reached over, unlocked the door, and gestured. "Get in." The boy stared at the open door for a second that felt like 10. His hands flexed against the backpack. Then, wordlessly, he stood, walked over, and slid into the passenger seat. The car was warm, dry, and silent, except for the soft sound of the rain against the roof and the quiet hum of the air system. The boy didn't say thank you. He didn't need to. Elon wasn't looking for gratitude. They drove in silence for several blocks. Elon took the long way around, circling through side streets lit by soft amber lamps and the occasional neon buzz of a 24-hour diner. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew they weren't going back to the hotel yet. After a few minutes, the boy spoke. "You're Elon Musk, right?" Elon glanced sideways. "Depends. Are you going to try and sell me something?" The boy actually smiled, a flicker barely there but real. "No, just, I saw your face on a billboard once." "Guilty then," Elon replied. Silence settled in again, but it was softer now, less brittle. "You hungry?" Elon asked. The boy nodded. 15 minutes later, They were sitting in a booth at a quiet roadside diner that hadn't changed its decor since 1982. The fluorescent lights inside made everything look sterile, but there was a comforting familiarity to the chipped formica tables and laminated menus. The waitress, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes and a kind smile, didn't ask questions. She just brought 2 mugs of hot cocoa and let them take their time. The boy devoured a grilled cheese sandwich and fries like it was his first real meal in days. Maybe it was. Elon watched without comment. Afterward, Elon slid the dessert menu toward him. "Pick something." The boy hesitated, then pointed to a slice of chocolate pie. Elon nodded. "Good choice." It was around then that he noticed the bruises, faint, almost hidden beneath the damp hoodie fabric. A small one just beneath the boy's jawline. Another on his wrist when he reached for a glass of water. He said nothing. Some things didn't need to be spoken right away. As they walked back to the car, the rain had softened to a mist. The boy hesitated near the passenger door. "You don't even know my name." Elon turned to him. "You'll tell me when you're ready." The boy stared at him for a long second, then nodded and got in. Back on the road, Elon finally asked, "Got any place in mind?" "Somewhere safe." The boy shook his head. "Not tonight." Elon nodded slowly. "All right then. Tonight, you're with me." That night, he didn't sleep much. Neither did the boy. And by morning, something would be set in motion that neither of them could have imagined. The ride to Elon's home was quiet but not tense. Malik, as Elon would later know him, stared out the window like he was trying to memorize the city's outline. Not out of awe, but necessity, as if he might need to find his way back from it one day, on foot and alone. The streets, lit with orange and blue reflections, passed by in wet streaks. Elon didn't push conversation. He simply drove with one hand on the wheel and the other resting on the console, focused but not overbearing, offering silence like a form of respect. When they pulled up to the house, it didn't look like what Malik had probably expected. It wasn't some lavish estate with columns or sprawling gates. It was sleek, modern, minimalistic, and dark against the trees, built into the landscape more than placed atop it. A house designed more for thinking than for living. Large windows, ambient lighting, and a driveway lined with quiet LEDs. The kind of place where secrets echo softly but don't scream. Inside, the air smelled like cedar and machines. The hum of integrated systems was barely noticeable, but ever present. Elon keyed in a soft command, and the lights adjusted automatically, casting a warm glow across the open space. The house had almost no clutter. Furniture was functional and futuristic, surfaces clean. Large displays embedded into the walls showed live data feeds from satellites, Mars rovers, and a custom AI dashboard Elon had built for his own peace of mind. A robotic dog peeked from a side room, blinking once before retreating. It didn't bark. Malik stood awkwardly just past the threshold, dripping water onto the imported slate floor. He didn't make eye contact, just looked around, his eyes darting from the motion sensor lights to a vertical garden wall that shimmered with mist. His soaked hoodie clung to him, and the backpack still hung tight from one shoulder, as if it contained something too important to let out of reach. "You can crash here tonight," Elon said, placing his keys on a small docking pad. "No questions." Malik didn't say anything, but he nodded. A single small motion. He still hadn't sat down. Elon opened a hallway closet and tossed him a fresh towel and a black Tesla hoodie, oversized but warm. "Bathrooms down that hall. You can shower. I'll leave some food out." When Malik returned, dry and slightly less guarded, the house felt a touch less sterile. He had swapped his soaked clothes for the hoodie and a pair of clean joggers Elon had found in a drawer, likely in used swag from a product launch. Malik's face, now visible without the hood shadowing it, looked sharper but not hardened. His features were strong, high cheekbones, alert eyes, but there was a deep weariness in his gaze, like he'd lived longer than his years justified. Dinner was simple. Elon wasn't a chef. A smart oven reheated some pasta and grilled vegetables from earlier in the week. He placed 2 plates on the kitchen island and gestured for Malik to sit. The boy hesitated for a second, then slid onto a stool, back straight, one foot curled around the chair leg, like he was ready to bolt if needed. They ate in near silence, punctuated only by the soft clink of fork against ceramic and the quiet whir of the rain resuming outside. Elon watched him out of the corner of his eye. Malik didn't scarf the food down like someone starved, but ate deliberately, like each bite had to last. He didn't ask what was in it or complain. He just ate. Elon, for once, didn't feel the need to fill the silence with theory or ideas or the usual talk about space and futures. He let the quiet stretch, oddly comfortable in it. He noticed how Malik's eyes kept flicking around the room, not out of fear but calculation, the way a coder might scan a program, a subtle tension in his brow. He wasn't just looking at things, he was reading them. At one point, Malik reached out and gently, without asking, turned the touchscreen on the fridge toward him. He didn't touch it, just tilted it, examining the code-like interface with a kind of hunger that had nothing to do with food. Elon said nothing, just filed the observation away. After they cleared the dishes, Malik insisted on rinsing his own plate. Elon walked him to the guest room. It wasn't extravagant. A low bed with gray sheets, a soft overhead light, and a small desk against the wall with a dormant monitor. "This room's yours tonight. Lock the door if you want," Elon said, resting a hand lightly on the doorframe. Malik stood in the doorway for a second, his hand tightening on the backpack strap. He didn't move. "What's your name?" Elon asked, his voice softer now. Not demanding, just curious. Malik looked up. His jaw tightened slightly, and for a moment Elon thought he might ignore the question. But then, quietly, like it cost him something, he answered, "Malik." Elon nodded slowly. "Well, Malik, make yourself at home." Malik stepped into the room. He didn't say thank you, and Elon didn't wait for it. He just turned and walked down the hallway, pausing only once to look back and see the boy setting his backpack on the desk, never far from reach. That night, Elon lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. He wasn't worried. Not exactly. But something in him had shifted. He'd done unexpected things before. But this wasn't about risk or reward. This was about a feeling, a pull he couldn't rationalize. Malik lay awake too on unfamiliar sheets, surrounded by machines he didn't understand but somehow respected. He stared at the ceiling for a long time, not from fear, but because he didn't trust the comfort. Home was not a word he used loosely. Home was what you built in your head to survive things. Not a place. Not really. And yet, for the first time in a while, he didn't sleep with his shoes on. Malik didn't talk much. Not because he was cold or angry or disinterested, but because he was careful. Words were like currency for him, to be spent only when absolutely necessary. Elon, in contrast, was used to dialogue, commands, questions, simulations, meetings, press, engineers, constant digital chatter. Even his home, for all its elegance and calm, was usually full of noise. Not human noise, perhaps, but interaction. AI assistants would greet him, adjust his lighting preferences, offer reminders of meetings, or send data updates on Mars soil samples. Silence wasn't absence, it was a setting. But with Malik there, it was a different kind of silence. One that wasn't programmed. It wasn't uncomfortable, but it had a presence of its own. Elon found himself listening in ways he wasn't used to, not with his ears, but with something deeper. There was no need for the usual pace. The house slowed, and so did he. In the mornings, Elon would find Malik already awake, quietly exploring the house like a cat mapping out new territory. He never touched anything twice. He was observant, respectful, too respectful for someone his age. He never asked for anything. He barely even ate unless encouraged. He slept in the guest room, but made the bed so tightly every morning, Elon had to smile. It looked like a hotel inspection was coming. Elon ran a quick background check. Not out of suspicion, but necessity. He asked no favors, just used public portals connected to school and child welfare systems. The results didn't surprise him, though they did bother him more than he expected. Malik had been through the system multiple times. No stable guardianship. 2 short-term foster homes in the last 8 months alone, neither lasting more than a few weeks. The note on the last placement said, "Didn't adjust." Another read, "Polite but unengaged. Keeps to himself." Elon wondered what that meant, "didn't adjust." Maybe the system never adjusted to him. He found old school records next, nothing spectacular, but something caught his eye. Teachers often used the same phrase to describe him, polite but invisible. Quiet, on time, never disruptive, never failing but never standing out either. Just there. Not a kid you remembered at the end of the year. Not one you'd write home about. A ghost with perfect attendance. That word, invisible, stuck with Elon. It haunted him more than he expected. He knew what it was to feel unseen. He'd once been the weird kid who read encyclopedias for fun and built rockets in his bedroom. He understood how isolation could hide in plain sight. It wasn't until the fourth night that something shifted. Elon had been working late, seated at the glass table in his study, reviewing a batch of new AI predictive behavior models. The hum of the house around him had become white noise. But suddenly, there was a different sound. Rhythmic, subtle. Thump, thump, pause, thump, thump, thump. He walked out quietly, barefoot, following the sound down the hallway until it led him to the kitchen. The lights were dim, casting long shadows over the polished floors. And there, in the middle of it, stood Malik, barefoot in the oversized Tesla hoodie, bouncing a tightly balled-up sock on the floor like it was a basketball. Not aggressively, not for show, just a steady bounce, over and over again, in a rhythm that seemed more about memory than motion. His eyes were distant, his body relaxed. The hoodie shifted with each bounce, the sleeves just barely covering his wrists. He wasn't aware he was being watched. He wasn't performing. He was remembering something, maybe something from before things got hard. Or maybe something that had never stopped being hard. "You play?" Elon asked, leaning against the doorframe, voice casual. Malik froze mid-bounce. The sock rolled to the side. He looked up, eyes slightly wider than usual, caught but not ashamed. He shrugged. "Used to. Nothing serious." Elon tilted his head. "Looks serious enough." There was a pause. And then, just for a second, Malik smiled. Barely a curl of the mouth, but unmistakable. Elon noticed it not because it was loud, but because it was rare. A kind of small unlocking. "Don't have a ball anymore," Malik said after a moment, picking up the sock again. "Used to carry one everywhere. Got taken at a shelter." "Was it special?" Malik shrugged again, but the way his fingers tightened around the sock said yes. Elon walked further into the kitchen and leaned on the counter. "I was never good at basketball," he admitted. "Too focused on rockets. Also, I think I was more likely to get hit in the face with the ball than score." Malik snorted just lightly. "You'd get better with practice." "Maybe. Or maybe I just needed a better teacher." For the next few minutes, they stood there. Malik bounced the sock again. This time, Elon didn't interrupt. He just watched the rhythm, watched the boy come to life in subtle ways. A shift of the shoulders, the looseness of his stance, the way he timed the bounce with the faint drip of water outside. There was something sacred about that sock. In a world that had stripped him of so much, names, homes, guardians, privacy, that sock was a stand-in for something he once loved. For courts under open skies. For noise that wasn't threatening. For movement that felt like freedom. And in that moment, Elon didn't see a troubled teen or a foster system statistic. He saw potential, not in the grand marketable sense, not a prodigy, just a kid, a real one, with real memories, real scars, real instincts. That night, long after Malik had gone back to his room, Elon walked into the garage. He found an old basketball from a promotional shoot for a Tesla event years ago, still sealed in plastic. He set it quietly outside Malik's door. He didn't leave a note. He didn't have to. The next morning, the ball was gone, and Elon found faint scuff marks on the edge of the garage wall. The gym smelled of polished wood and memory. It echoed differently than other buildings, like a chapel for movement. Sneakers squeaked even when no one was running. The lighting buzzed faintly overhead, a long row of fluorescents casting a pale glow over faded team banners and rows of dented bleachers. Elon sat in the top row, elbows on his knees, watching silently as Malik stepped onto the court for the first time in what was probably months, maybe longer. It had taken a single phone call. Elon wasn't the type to pull strings often, but when he did, doors opened. The charter school was tucked away in East Austin, known for its small but focused athletic program, and a coach who believed in second chances almost as much as fundamentals. When Elon explained that the boy wasn't looking for a team, a scholarship, or even attention, just a court, the school agreed to let him try out privately, no promises. Just space. Malik hadn't said much in the car ride over. He held the newly inflated basketball Elon had given him with a grip that seemed less about excitement and more about reverence. Like the ball was a passport and the gym was a gate to a country he hadn't visited in too long. When they arrived, the coach, a tall, lean man named Coach Reyes, greeted them without ceremony. He had a clipboard tucked under one arm and a stopwatch hanging from his neck, but his eyes were kind. He nodded at Elon, shook Malik's hand, and gestured toward the court. No speech, no pressure, just show me. Malik walked toward the free throw line without a word. No warm-up, no stretching, no elaborate dribbling. He didn't spin the ball dramatically in his hands or slap his chest like the high schoolers on TV. He simply stood, bounced the ball once, and shot. Swish. Then again. Swish. Then again. The ball barely touched the rim. His feet stayed grounded, posture compact. His release was smooth, like muscle memory had never left. Shot after shot, the rhythm of the ball hitting net became hypnotic. From the sideline, Coach Reyes watched with his arms folded. Beside him, an assistant coach leaned in. "Where's this kid from?" the assistant asked under his breath. Elon didn't answer. He was sitting farther up in the bleachers, a few rows above, hands clasped in front of him. He wasn't filming. He wasn't taking notes. He wasn't coaching. He was just watching, eyes narrowed, not critically, but thoughtfully. There was something about the way Malik moved. It wasn't polished like a trained athlete, but it had intent. His body language wasn't about performance. It was about necessity. After about 10 straight shots, Malik dribbled once, stepped back, and tried a three-pointer. Swish. Coach Reyes blinked. "He hasn't said a word," he muttered. Elon finally spoke softly. "He doesn't need to." They ran him through basic drills. Nothing structured. Just space to move, pivot, shoot. Malik obeyed every suggestion, every signal, but never asked questions. His focus was complete. The ball was an extension of him, and the court a place where gravity obeyed different rules. Even when he missed, and he did miss, now and then, he never got frustrated. He never looked around for validation. He simply chased the rebound, reset, and tried again. It was like he wasn't playing for anyone. Not for a team, a coach, or even Elon. He was playing from something, escaping something invisible. The silence in the gym changed. It stopped being awkward and started feeling sacred. Coach Reyes walked toward the baseline, rubbing his jaw. "I think we've got something here," he said at last, not loudly. Elon nodded, but said nothing. He wasn't sure what something meant yet. Potential? Talent? Maybe. But Malik wasn't trying to prove a future. He was just reclaiming a part of himself. After a full hour, Malik finally stopped. Not because he was told to. He just paused at the top of the key, palms resting on a ball, breathing steadily. He looked up at the ceiling like he was trying to remember what it felt like to do this without shadows hanging over him. No celebration, no swagger, no fist pumps. He simply walked to half court, turned, and started shooting again. Coach Reyes turned to Elon. "I want him here. He's raw, but he's got instincts. Footwork, calm under pressure. Can't teach that. Kid's got something." Elon looked at the coach with that quiet calculation he reserved for complex launches or make-or-break investments. "What if he doesn't want to join a team?" Elon asked. "Then we don't push. We just let him shoot," Reyes replied. "Sometimes that's all a kid needs." That answer sat well with Elon. After practice, Malik didn't wait for praise. He wiped his forehead with his sleeve, grabbed the ball, and walked toward Elon. He watched the whole thing, he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Every second. Malik gave the smallest nod. Cool. They left without ceremony. Outside, the sun had just begun to set, casting orange light across the pavement. Elon unlocked the car with a quiet beep. Before getting in, Malik stood for a second, looking back at the gym. Did okay, he asked. Elon opened the door and smiled faintly. You did more than okay. Malik didn't smile back, but he held the ball a little tighter on the way home. And in the rear-view mirror, Elon saw something new in his eyes. Not hope exactly, but something near it. The real battle didn't happen on the court. It happened under fluorescent office lights, across glossy desks, through forms, regulations, and skeptical stares. Getting Malik into school wasn't just about enrollment. It was about trust and the absence of it. Elon had faced tougher negotiations in boardrooms with billion-dollar stakes, but somehow convincing a mid-level administrator to let a teenage boy play basketball and take algebra felt more personal and, oddly, more difficult. The woman behind the desk wore a badge that said Director of Admissions, but her tone was more like a gatekeeper than a guide. You can't just bring in a kid off the street, she said, arms crossed tightly, voice clipped with bureaucratic authority. Her office was pristine. Neatly stacked files, framed credentials, a motivational poster about potential. But the warmth stopped at the decor. Elon didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice or flash a title. He simply leaned forward, fingers interlaced, and said calmly, he's not off the street. He's a student. Treat him like one. She blinked. There was something about the way he said it, measured but unwavering, that pressed pause on her resistance. Still, she adjusted her glasses and replied, we need documentation. Proof of residency, guardianship, immunization history, emergency contacts. We can't admit someone based on sentiment. It's not sentiment, Elon said. It's logistics. I'll handle them. Every paper, every requirement. But he walks into class like every other student. He's earned that. Silence filled the office like static. Eventually, she sighed and handed him a stack of forms. If you're serious, start here. And Elon did. That afternoon, he spent the next several days weaving through the kind of red tape that couldn't be cut with reputation alone. He met with counselors. He found a legal channel to appoint temporary educational guardianship. He arranged private medical checkups to update vaccination records. He even sat through a 90-minute online training on foster youth engagement just to preempt the next layer of resistance. He also paid for everything, quietly. No headlines, no tweets, no public applause. He established a private scholarship under a different name, ensuring Malik would have books, meals, tutoring, even sneakers for gym. No one was told, not even Malik. To him, the world just worked that week. For once. But high school has its own economy of rumors. It didn't take long for whispers to start. Did you hear Elon Musk brought in that kid? He lives with him, like in his house. Why that kid? What's so special about him? He's probably some genius or something. Nah, he's quiet. Doesn't even talk in class. Some of it came from curiosity, some from envy, most from ignorance. Malik heard it all. At the lockers, in hallways, under shallow laughs that didn't match the eyes behind them. But he didn't respond. Not with words. He let the ball do the talking. Every day after school, he hit the court. Sometimes alone. Sometimes with teammates who slowly began to respect him. Not because of where he came from, but because of what he did once the ball was in play. There was no drama in his game. No posturing. Just discipline. Consistency. Heart. He ran drills when no one asked him to. He stayed late after practice, picking up stray cones and folding jerseys without being told. He showed up early to class, sat in the back, took notes, didn't draw attention, and still the whispers followed. One afternoon, as they left practice, Malik walked quietly beside Elon in the parking lot. The air smelled like cut grass and sunscreen. Voices trailed behind them. I don't care, Malik said suddenly, not looking up. I mean, I hear them. I just don't care. Elon glanced over. Good, he said simply. Malik nodded. Still bugs me sometimes." "That's normal," Elon replied. "People fear what doesn't make sense to them, especially when it refuses to play by their script." Malik kicked a loose pebble across the asphalt. "Why me, though? You could have helped anyone." Elon stopped walking, turned to him. "Because you weren't trying to be helped," he said. "You weren't asking for anything. You just kept moving forward. That told me everything." Malik didn't answer, but something in his shoulders relaxed. A fraction. Later that night, Malik found a quote printed and taped to the inside of his closet door. Elon never mentioned it. It read, "Let them talk. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that fits their comfort zone." Malik repeated that line in his head more often than he admitted, especially in moments when old doubts crept in, when he wondered if the court was the only place he'd ever be allowed to breathe. But each time he bounced back, not with arrogance, with clarity. And in doing so, he began to build something stronger than reputation. He built identity. One basket, one class, one quiet step at a time. The gym pulsed with the energy of 100 teenage voices bouncing off old brick walls. Banners hung from the rafters like silent witnesses to years of triumphs and heartbreaks. The scoreboard buzzed faintly above the court, blinking red and white with urgency. Squeaks of sneakers cut across the hardwood like static, and the scent of sweat, adrenaline, and popcorn lingered in the air. It was game night, and for Malik it was his first. He sat on the bench, elbows on his knees, palms pressed together. His jersey was crisp and new, navy with white trim, the number 11 stitched cleanly across the back. He had tied his shoes twice, not out of nerves but habit. Beside him, teammates shouted encouragements, bounced legs, joked, shouted to the court, but Malik stayed quiet, eyes locked on the flow of the game. His body was still, but his mind moved like a motor. From the bleachers, Elon watched in near stillness. He wasn't dressed like a parent or a coach. No school colors, no foam finger, no clapping on big plays. He sat in a dark jacket, blending in, but his presence had weight. Hands clasped between his knees, back slightly hunched forward, watching Malik and only Malik. He didn't look at the scoreboard, didn't look at the other players. He was studying the moment before the moment. The first half came and went. Malik stayed benched. Coach Reyes glanced his way a few times, but said nothing. That was the plan, ease him in, not throw him to the wolves too soon. Malik didn't complain. He simply watched the game, his fingers twitching lightly each time the ball passed through open space. Then came the third quarter. With 4 minutes left on the clock and the team trailing by 6, Coach Reyes clapped twice and called his name. "Malik, you're in." No dramatic music, no inspirational slow-motion jog. Just a nod from Malik, who stood, peeled off his warm-up top, and jogged to the scorer's table. He tapped hands with the player coming out, took a position on the wing, and looked at the point guard. First possession came fast. The ball zipped across the court, point to forward to guard, and then, suddenly, it was in Malik's hands. For half a second, he froze. Not visibly, but Elon saw it, a tiny hesitation, the pause before instinct takes over. Malik held the ball like it weighed more than leather and air. He scanned. Defender in front. Another closing in. Then something clicked. He shifted left, feinted right, then drove forward in a sharp cut that split both defenders. The crowd gasped. 2 dribbles later, he elevated and laid the ball cleanly off the glass. The gym erupted, not with polite applause, but with a real noise. The bone-deep kind of roar that comes when people witness something raw and true. The scoreboard lit up, the buzzer sounded, and Malik, he didn't raise his arms, didn't flex, didn't high-five anyone. He turned, sprinted back on defense, eyes scanning, chest rising and falling with calm urgency. Elon didn't stand, didn't clap. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, fingers interlocked. Watching. The next few minutes were a blur. Malik moved like he'd been on that court for years. He didn't take every shot, but the ones he did, he made count. A mid-range jumper, a clean assist on a backdoor cut, a steal that led to a fast break layup. He wasn't trying to dominate. He was trying to belong. And in that gym, under the same flickering lights that had watched hundreds of boys before him chase moments of glory, Malik wasn't chasing anything. He was just moving, playing, living. By the end of the quarter, the team was up by 3. Coach pulled Malik for rest, and when he sat back down, his teammates slapped his back, tossed him towels, shouted in his ear. He barely responded. He just breathed. Elon stayed until the final buzzer. The team won by 5. Everyone celebrated. Parents filed down to hug their sons. Students took photos. Coaches shouted praise. Malik found Elon near the exit. He didn't say much, just nodded. The gym felt different now. Less like a place he didn't belong, and more like a room he'd finally unlocked. On the drive home, the radio played softly, some local station with blues guitar humming underneath talk show chatter. Neither of them spoke for a while. The city rolled past the windows in yellow halos and quiet streets. At a red light, Malik finally said, barely above a whisper, "Felt good." Elon glanced over. "Yeah." Malik looked out the window. "Yeah." There was something under those words. Not joy exactly, not pride. Something deeper, like release. Like a weight that had been balanced too long finally shifted. Elon nodded once. "Keep feeling it, but don't chase it." Malik turned toward him. "What do you mean?" "Moments like that, you don't force them. You stay ready. You stay real. They'll find you again." Malik thought about that as they pulled into the driveway. That night, he went to bed without saying another word. But before turning off the light, he looked at the basketball resting near his door. And for the first time, he didn't feel like he needed to prove anything. Just show up and keep moving. The transition was quiet, but undeniable. What began as a stay had turned into something else, something neither of them named, but both recognized. Malik no longer hovered by the door with his backpack half-zipped. He no longer waited for permission to sit, to ask for water, to breathe in the space like it belonged to him too. Elon noticed the shift in the smallest of things, the way Malik left his hoodie slung over the back of a chair, or the way his shoes were lined up beside a front door, not tucked behind it. The house, once marked by silence and automated routines, began to carry a different energy. It wasn't chaos, it was presence. Music played softly from the smart speakers now, usually jazz or lo-fi beats Malik had discovered and added to the shared playlist. The AI assistants adapted quickly to the new patterns, dimming lights differently, learning when to activate the stove fan or when to silence updates during homework time. Dinner became a ritual. It wasn't fancy grilled chicken, rice bowls, pasta with whatever vegetables Elon remembered to pick up, but was regular. And it was noisy. Not with shouting, but with movement, the clatter of forks, the scrape of chairs, the buzz of shared space. It was the noise of life happening, unpolished and good. One night, about 4 weeks in, Malik looked up from his plate and asked, "You really launched rockets?" Elon blinked, caught off guard. Malik hadn't asked much about his work until then. He spoke more about practice, school, and occasionally the books he had started flipping through in the study. "Yeah," Elon replied, leaning back. "I've failed more launches than I care to count." Malik smirked. "Same with layups." They both laughed, short, unexpected bursts. The kind of laughter that didn't need to be explained. After dinner, Malik wandered into the study, as he often did now, not to watch TV or play games, but to read. Elon had filled the shelves with a mix of old physics texts, biographies, and obscure engineering journals. At first, Malik had gravitated toward the sports section, books on endurance, muscle memory, tactical basketball formations. But lately, Elon noticed titles like neuroplasticity and learning and flow. The psychology of optimal experience left open on the coffee table, highlighter marks creeping onto the pages. It wasn't just that Malik wanted to play better. He wanted to understand his body, his mind, the game, the science. He read in silence but absorbed in patterns, occasionally mumbling something under his breath as he connected dots between footwork drills and brain elasticity. Elon watched him one evening, leaning against the doorway with a glass of water in hand. "You're more than talent," he said quietly. Malik looked up. "You've got vision." Malik blinked once, then shrugged. "Guess I'm learning to see." The humility in his voice wasn't modesty. It was curiosity. Malik didn't act like someone with answers. He acted like someone hungry for them. That night, the music was louder than usual. Not obnoxious, just alive. A Miles Davis tune played from a kitchen speaker, mixing with the sound of Malik trying to spin a basketball on his finger while balancing a textbook in the other hand. "Multitasking," Elon observed with a grin. "Mind and body," Malik said, not missing a beat. When the ball fell, he didn't curse or complain. He picked it up, tried again. The house felt different now. Not because of furniture or lights or automation, but because of echo. The kind that comes from laughter that fills a room and stays there like a scent. The kind that leaves warmth on the walls. It was in the hallway where Malik left a sticky note that read, "Don't forget water bottle," in his own handwriting. It was in the bathroom mirror where a smudge from shaving cream had somehow not been wiped off for days. It was in the freezer where frozen burritos now shared space with meticulously packed SpaceX rations Elon used to snack on during late-night coding sessions. They didn't talk about it, this shift from guest to resident. It just was. And it made sense in the same way a good past does, instinctively. Later that week, Malik showed Elon a diagram he had drawn in his notebook, half basketball play, half brain map. Lines connecting decision trees with defensive formations. Color-coded neural responses based on visual stimuli. Elon studied it for a long moment. "You know," he said, "this is kind of brilliant." Malik shrugged again, that same shrug he used when he wasn't deflecting praise so much as keeping it in perspective. "Just try and see the angles." That phrase stuck with Elon more than it should have. Trying to see the angles. It reminded him of rocket trajectories, launch windows, margin of error. It reminded him of being young and building things no one believed in yet. Except now, he wasn't the boy with the vision. He was the one who had to protect it in someone else. And in that moment, he was okay with that. Because watching Malik find his rhythm, in words, in motion, in thought, was a kind of launch, too. Just without flames. The afternoon sun filtered through the gym windows in golden slants, casting long rectangles of light on the polished court. The sounds were familiar, sneakers squeaking, a whistle in the distance, the rhythmic echo of basketballs striking wood. Malik was mid-drill, his form precise, movements clean. The coach barked encouragement from the sideline, and his teammates passed, pivoted, ran through the motion again. But then the rhythm shifted. Malik didn't see the man right away. He heard a door creak, one that usually stayed shut, and turned instinctively. At first glance, it could have been anyone, just another parent arriving early or a delivery worker lost in the hallways. But when Malik's eyes locked onto the man leaning against the far wall just outside the gym doors, his entire body changed. Not dramatically, not outwardly, but Elon saw it from the stands. The way Malik's shoulders tensed, the way his jaw locked, the way he avoided the light coming through the glass panels as if it burned. Elon stood, walking slowly toward the court's edge. He didn't speak, but the coach noticed. "Something wrong?" he asked, following Elon's gaze. Outside the gym, the man had stumbled slightly. Mid-50s, scruffy beard, sun-damaged skin, wearing an old jacket and mismatched shoes. His eyes were glassy, and even from a distance, the scent of liquor preceded him like a flag. He leaned against the doorframe with the loose swagger of someone pretending to be stronger than they were. "He's mine," the man slurred as soon as Malik stepped into view. Malik stopped in his tracks, his fists clenched by his sides, but he didn't speak. Elon moved past the coach without hesitation and stood between them, his tone even but sharp. "He's not property. He's a person." The man scoffed, his breath sharp and bitter. "You think money lets you take what's not yours?" "This isn't about money," Elon said calmly. "It's about safety, about choice." The man's gaze flicked to Malik, who stood a few steps behind, not speaking, not moving. His silence wasn't fear. It was fury, controlled but real. The coach, now tense, stepped closer. "Do you want us to call someone?" he asked quietly, hand half raised toward his phone. Malik shook his head. "No need." He stepped forward. Elon looked at him once, silently asking, "Are you sure?" Malik nodded. Outside, the air was crisp, the sun unforgiving in its brightness. The man squinted as Malik approached, as if trying to recognize the boy he hadn't seen in years. They spoke for less than 2 minutes. Elon couldn't hear the words, but he could read the posture. Malik stood tall. The man shifted often, unsteady. At one point, he reached out, but Malik didn't flinch. He just stepped back and shook his head. Then, quietly, he turned and walked back into the gym. The man stood there a moment longer. Then he left. Malik re-entered the gym without looking at anyone. He didn't explain. No one asked. He picked up the ball and returned to the drill. But something had changed. He played harder that afternoon, faster, sharper. His cuts were tighter, his jumpers more confident. He called for the ball more. He rebounded like he needed it more than anyone else. Elon sat in the bleachers, watching every step. The coach pulled him aside during a water break. "That kid's locked in," he said. "Whatever happened out there, it put fuel in the tank." Elon nodded. He's clearing space. Later that night at the house, Malik ate dinner in silence. No music played this time. The room was calm, but heavy with unspoken things. After the dishes were done, Elon leaned against the kitchen counter as Malik rinsed his glass. "You okay?" Elon asked, voice soft. Malik dried his hands on a towel. "Just clearing space," he said. Then he went to his room. Elon didn't follow. He just stood there for a moment, letting the stillness return. He looked at the basketball resting by the couch, at the open book on neuropsychology, at the faint smudge on the fridge door where Malik always opened it with his left hand. Shadows had entered the house that day, but they didn't stay, because Malik didn't let them. He didn't run from them, didn't hide them under his bed or behind jokes or noise. He met them at the door, face to face, and told them they didn't get to follow him inside anymore. That night, in the quiet hum of the house, something shifted again. Not in volume, but in weight. Malik had started out as a guest, then a student, then a teammate. But now, after that moment, he wasn't just someone living in the house. He was building his own ground, and Elon quietly knew it. The transformation wasn't dramatic. There was no single breakthrough, no teary declarations or grand gestures. It was quieter than that, slower, but real. Malik had started to thrive. On the court, that much was obvious. His footwork had sharpened, his awareness heightened, and his confidence grew not through swagger, but through reliability. He became the player teammates passed to when the clock was low and the score was close. He didn't call for the spotlight, but it seemed to follow him anyway. What surprised most people, though, was what was happening off the court. In the classroom, Malik's name began showing up in emails to the front office, but not for disciplinary reasons. Instead, teachers were taking notice of his focus, his follow-through, his curiosity. "Exceptional progress," one wrote. "Shows analytical depth," said another. "Quiet leadership." He had gone from barely seen to impossible to overlook. It wasn't that he suddenly became someone else. He had always been capable, but now he had structure, consistency, someone who stayed at the table when the questions got hard. Elon helped him with homework in the evenings, not by giving him answers, but by teaching him how to build frameworks for thinking. They turned math problems into systems. Literature essays became arguments to be mapped. Elon used metaphors from engineering, rocket design, neural networks, things Malik didn't fully understand yet, but intuitively respected. "You're building a brain like you build a body," Elon said one night as they worked through a particularly dense problem on logical fallacies. Malik nodded, biting the cap of his pen. One rep at a time. The two of them had settled into a rhythm that defied easy description. It wasn't father and son, not officially, not legally, not even explicitly emotionally. It wasn't mentorship either. It was something in between, something that resisted labels. It was consistency. Malik came home to someone who asked how his day was and waited for the answer. Someone who had dinner ready. Someone who noticed when he hadn't spoken much and gave him space without retreating, someone who stayed. And Elon, for his part, found that his house, the one built with sensors and solar panels and predictive routines, had taken on a new kind of intelligence, emotional logic. The lights weren't just responding to voice commands anymore. They were adapting to rhythm, to Malik's rhythm. Some nights, Malik would stay up late reading, and the system learned not to dim the hallway light until 1 a.m. Other nights, when he returned from games with less energy and more silence, the music that played in the background adjusted itself, fading from jazz to ambient. Elon didn't program that. It just happened, because the house wasn't just responding to data. It was responding to life. Malik still avoided cameras. He declined interviews when local reporters asked to feature the mystery student athlete with ties to Elon Musk. He refused to let anyone tag him in photos, and more than once he ducked out of team pictures. But he stayed late after practice. That was where his gravity showed. He helped the younger players, boys 2 or 3 years behind, still figuring out how to dribble with control or how to take a charge without flinching. Malik didn't coach with words. He coached with presence, by demonstrating, by staying, by running drills with them until their shoulders relaxed and their confidence caught up. One afternoon, Coach Reyes stood next to Elon in the bleachers as practice wrapped up. The gym was nearly empty except for Malik and 2 freshman kids who were still taking jump shots under his watchful eye. "He's got a gravity," the coach said, crossing his arms. Elon didn't speak right away. He watched Malik rebound a missed shot and hand the ball back without correcting, without critique. Just a nod and another pass. Then he said, "So did every satellite before it found its orbit." Coach raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Elon watched a little longer. He's finding his. And he was. Malik wasn't loud. He didn't command attention. But when he moved, others noticed. When he spoke, they listened. There was something grounded in him now. The storms of his past, the father who showed up drunk, the foster homes that pushed him out, the silence that used to fill his voice, those storms hadn't disappeared. But they had quieted, because he had found something bigger than safety. He had found function. He had a place to return to, a role to play, a future to shape. And he was shaping it, not with rage or rebellion, but with rhythm. Every practice, every book, every meal he helped cook, every time he reached for a towel to toss across the back of a chair and didn't worry about whether it was his chair to use. Malik was building something, not a reputation, a life. And Elon, the man who had once measured success in payloads and launch sequences, now found himself most invested in the liftoff of a single, quiet teenager who never asked for rescue but never stopped moving forward. They were a family now, not by name, by pattern. It started small, just a pair of unfamiliar faces in the stands. Men in polo shirts with clipboards and baseball caps pulled low. They didn't cheer. They didn't speak. They just watched, eyes sharp, pen scratching every few minutes. Malik didn't notice them at first. Or maybe he did and just didn't care. But Elon noticed. He saw the way they leaned forward when Malik brought the ball up the court. The way they nudged each other after a fast break executed with surgical precision. The way they stayed even after the final buzzer, lingering near the exit as if waiting for a moment to introduce themselves. Word had started to spread. Malik's stats were good, more than good, but that wasn't what was drawing people in. It wasn't the numbers. It was the way he played. The calm under pressure. The way he read the court as if it were a circuit board, and he was tracing current flow. Scouts weren't just looking at his highlights. They were studying his decision trees, his anticipation, his gravity. He reads the court like it's code, one recruiter whispered during a particularly tight game, notebook open on his lap. After the final buzzer, Malik walked off the court, sweat glistening on his brow, eyes forward, expression unchanged. Elon met him at the end of the tunnel with a water bottle and a towel. "They're watching you now," Elon said as they sat on a bench just outside the locker room. Malik took a breath. Not nervous, just steady. "Let them," he replied. But as the attention grew, so did the noise. Cameras showed up at practice. Reporters called the school. Anonymous online accounts speculated about Malik's background, his connection to Elon, his story. Teammates who once laughed and trained alongside him started whispering a little more, watching a little closer, waiting to see what doors would open. And for whom? Elon saw the shift, and he saw how it brushed against Malik's shoulders like wind against a sail. It didn't knock him over, but it tested his balance. One night at home, Elon sat across the table from Malik as they ate in silence. The music had been paused, and the mood was quieter than usual. "They'll want to shape you now," Elon said. "Narratives, brands, endorsements, offers." Malik poked at his rice with his fork. "I didn't ask for any of that." "You didn't have to," Elon said, "but it's here, and it won't stop coming." Malik nodded. "Then I just keep showing up." Elon smiled faintly. "That's the answer, but you have to hold it." In the weeks that followed, Malik began to unplug. He deleted the apps from his phone. No more scrolling between classes, no more reading what strangers thought of him from behind avatars and hashtags. He stopped giving interviews, politely declined podcast requests. When people asked questions off the court, he redirected them to the game. Or to silence. He returned to what he knew: school, practice, breath. Elon noticed the shift almost immediately. Malik's focus sharpened again, not from avoidance, but from clarity. He began keeping a notebook, jotting down notes from games, reflections, diagrams of plays, fragments of quotes from books he'd been reading on mental performance and resilience. Tension is a teacher. Noise is not information. Be water. Take form, then move. These weren't slogans. They were mantras, anchors in a world spinning faster around him. At practice, coaches started whispering more. Not just about his performance, but his presence. "He's different," one said after watching Malik lead a scrimmage. "It's like he's already where we're trying to get the others to be." Reyes, his head coach, simply nodded. "He doesn't need noise. He is the signal." Elon heard all of it, but none of it surprised him. He had seen this from the beginning, not just the raw ability, but the rare ability to filter. Malik wasn't just smart or skilled. He had a kind of inner architecture, a system that wasn't always visible from the outside, but once seen, couldn't be ignored. At home, Malik kept his world simple. One night, Elon walked past his room and saw the boy sitting cross-legged on the floor, not at his desk, with a ball balanced on his knees and a candle burning on the windowsill. No screen, no noise, just breath and rhythm. The next day, he dropped 22 points in a game against the top-ranked school in the region. Then he stayed after, not for cameras, but to help collect stray water bottles and fold towels. When Elon picked him up, Malik climbed into the car, quietly, eyes out the window. After a while, he said, "I'm not afraid of them watching." "I know," Elon replied. "It's just, I want to make sure I'm not watching them back too much." Elon turned to look at him. "That's wisdom, not fear." Malik nodded. "I'm not built for flash." "No," Elon said. "You're built for orbit." And in that silence that followed, Malik rested his head against the window. The noise would keep coming. The eyes would stay on him. But he knew now, his rhythm didn't depend on their gaze. He wasn't chasing light. He was the quiet storm. And the world, finally, was beginning to hear the thunder. The air in the gym after the final buzzer felt heavier than usual. Not just because of the loss, but because of the silence that followed it. There were no celebrations on Malik's side, only the low scrape of sneakers and the hollow clapping of the opposing team's fans echoing across the rafters. The scoreboard flashed its final verdict in red and gold, 58-56. 2 points. One missed shot. Malik had taken it. It was the cleanest look they'd had all night. He had dribbled left, stepped into open space, and let the ball fly. The form was perfect. The arc looked right, but the ball had kissed the rim and spun out as the buzzer sounded. A second too soon, a centimeter too shallow. Whatever it was, it hadn't been enough. The crowd had gasped, then gone quiet, then shifted into motion. Teams shaking hands, coaches yelling instructions, cameras looking for reactions. Malik stood at the free throw line for a moment longer than the others, the ball still spinning in his mind. By the time Elon reached the locker room, the team had cleared out. Some went home, others to sulk outside or meet family in the parking lot. But Malik was still there, still in uniform, sitting on a bench with his elbows resting on his knees, head down, fingers interlocked like he was praying to no one in particular. His jersey clung to his back, damp with sweat. His bag sat untouched by the wall. The room smelled like disinfectant and rubber soles, but also something else, disappointment, thick and sour. Elon stepped inside, the door closing with a soft click behind him. He didn't speak right away, just approached slowly, stopping a few feet away. "Want to talk?" he asked gently. Malik didn't look up. His voice was low, almost hoarse. Maybe they were right. Elon tilted his head. "Who?" "Everyone. The ones online. The ones who said I'm just hype. That I can't finish. That I don't have what it takes when it matters." Elon sat down beside him. Not facing him, just next to him, eyes ahead. "You think I got every rocket launch right?" he asked. Malik didn't respond. "I lost count of the times I watched $1 billion explode in the air," Elon continued. "Sat there helpless, watching fire and debris and silence afterward. Engineers crying, headlines shredding us, people calling us reckless, stupid, arrogant." A beat passed. "But the ones that flew," he added, "they changed the world." Malik finally blinked. The glaze in his eyes didn't vanish, but it shifted, like a fog letting in a little light. He took a deep breath, then another. "Then I guess I better keep building," he said quietly. Elon nodded. Neither of them moved for a while. The clock on the wall ticked softly. Outside, the buzz of fans exiting the arena began to fade. The world moved on. But inside that locker room, time stretched, and something deeper was being built. That night, Malik didn't go home right away. Elon didn't make him. They drove in silence through the city, the streetlights carving long shadows on the pavement. Instead of heading to the house, Malik asked Elon to drop him off at the gym's side entrance. Elon didn't question it. He just nodded. Malik unlocked the back door with the code Reyes had given him weeks ago for after-hours practice. The place was dark and still, but familiar. He didn't turn on all the lights, just the ones above the court. The rest of the gym remained in shadow. For 2 hours, Malik shot alone, not to punish himself, not to simulate the missed play, but to reconnect, to remind himself what it felt like to move without noise, without expectation. To breathe, jump, release, repeat. His shots weren't angry. They weren't rushed. Each one was deliberate, like a brick being laid. A foundation. Bounce. Step. Shoot. Land. Reset. The ball echoed off the hardwood, the rim, the backboard, filling the empty gym with its own rhythm. Outside, the moon hung low and pale, casting a gentle glow through the upper windows. At one point, Malik sat down on the court, legs outstretched, ball resting beside him. He stared up at the ceiling, eyes searching the beams and rafters as if looking for something deeper than architecture. He stayed like that for a long time. And when he rose again, he didn't count the makes or the misses. He just kept shooting, because sometimes rebuilding isn't about erasing the fall. It's about re-entering the space where it happened and daring to move again. When he finally returned home, shoes slung over his shoulder, shirt damp with sweat, Elon was still up. Sitting in the study with the lights dimmed, reading. He looked up as Malik entered. "You good?" Malik nodded. "Getting there." Elon offered a small smile. "That's enough for tonight." And it was. Arrived on a Tuesday morning, unannounced. No embossed logo. No courier service. Just a plain white envelope slid under the coach's office door. The name printed in bold, clean lettering across the front, Malik Johnson. Coach Reyes found it after practice, sandwiched between scouting reports and a cup of rapidly cooling coffee. He opened it, expecting some administrative notice, maybe a transcript request. But as he read the contents, his eyebrows lifted slowly, then settled into a wide, quiet smile. By the time afternoon practice started, the letter had been carefully returned to its envelope and tucked into his jacket pocket. He waited for the right moment, after drills, after free throws, after the noise of warm-ups began to settle into focus. "Circle up," he shouted. The team formed a semi-messy huddle near center court, sneakers scuffing on the hardwood. Sweat beaded on foreheads, breath heavy from wind sprints. But attention was immediate when Coach pulled out the envelope and held it in the air. "I got something here that changes everything," he said, eyes scanning the circle. Full ride, full academic and athletic scholarship from one of the top programs in the country. There was a beat of silence. Then the room exploded. Voices rose in disbelief, laughter, shouts of congratulations. Teammates swarmed Malik, slapping him on the back, rubbing his head, yelling his name like they were in a stadium. Malik stood still in the center of it all, stunned, his hands slightly raised like he couldn't believe the celebration was for him. Coach walked over, placed the envelope in his hands. "It's real, son," he said, smiling. "All of it." Meanwhile, Elon waited outside the gym, arms folded across his chest, leaning against the Tesla. He could hear the noise through the concrete walls, cheers, the echo of sneakers jumping and sliding, voices raised with joy. He didn't need to ask what had happened. He knew. The door swung open minutes later, and Malik stepped out, slower than usual, like the air outside was thicker than he expected. He had the envelope in one hand, pinched between his fingers like something fragile. His eyes were wide, unfocused, like he was still trying to process the shift. "This real?" he asked. Elon nodded. "All earned." Malik looked back down at the envelope, turning it over once, twice. He opened it again, like maybe the words would vanish if he didn't keep checking. His hands shook slightly. "I never thought about college," he murmured. "Not really." Elon's voice was low but certain. "It's not about college. It's about choice." Malik looked up. "You've lived so long reacting to the world," Elon continued. "This gives you space to design your life. That's the gift, not the scholarship, the freedom." The words settled into Malik slowly, like water soaking into dry soil. They didn't go out that night. No celebration dinner, no party, just the quiet ride home, Malik holding the envelope like a document too valuable to fold. When they reached the house, he didn't head to his room right away. Instead, he walked to the kitchen table, sat down, and read the letter again. Not quickly, word by word, like it was a new language. There were parts he didn't fully understand, terms about academic credit, housing guarantees, transportation stipends. But what mattered was the signature at the bottom and the phrase, "We are proud to offer you this opportunity based on your outstanding performance, character, and potential." He read that sentence aloud once. "Performance, character, and potential," he repeated under his breath. Not hype. Elon, sitting nearby with a mug of tea in hand, said nothing, just listened. Later that night, Malik took the letter upstairs and tucked it into the inside pocket of his jacket, the same one he used to wear every day when he didn't have anywhere else to go. The seams were frayed and the zipper stuck, but it was his. That letter felt like it belonged there. Not on a wall, not in a frame, but close, like a passport. He didn't tell the whole school the next day. Didn't post it online. He didn't even bring it up to most of his friends. But Coach put a copy of the acceptance letter in a glass case near the gym entrance with Malik's name printed in clean font above it. "Because the next kid needs to see it," Coach said when Malik protested. So it stayed there, visible, proof that someone who started invisible could become undeniable. Malik began to walk differently after that, not with arrogance, but with intention. Like the weight he had carried for years had shifted from burden to ballast. He still trained hard, still stayed late, still helped underclassmen with drills. But there was something in his eyes now, a wideness, a sense that the horizon wasn't closing in, but expanding. Elon noticed it in the way Malik asked new questions about city planning, biomechanics, coding languages. One afternoon, Malik mentioned maybe double majoring. "Is that allowed?" he asked. Elon had laughed. "It's your life. There's no limit except the one you draw. Malik folded the letter again that evening and placed it back in his jacket pocket. Not because he needed to see it again, but because he understood what it meant. It wasn't a finish line. It was a gate. It was Malik's last weekend before the move. Boxes lined the hallway, carefully labeled: dorm clothes, shoes, books, basketball gear. Elon had tried to convince him to hire movers to let assistants handle the transition, but Malik refused. He packed every item himself, folding his past piece by piece. Saturday morning came with quiet skies and a soft breeze. Malik didn't sleep in. He was up early, sitting at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal and a folded piece of paper next to him, his scholarship itinerary. Elon entered the room still groggy, hair tousled, holding a cup of coffee. "You ready for the big leagues?" he asked, nodding toward the itinerary. Malik chewed slowly and shrugged. "Almost." There was a pause. Then Malik said, "Can we go shoot around today?" Elon raised an eyebrow. "You've got the best gym in the city at your disposal, and you want to hit a local hoop." Malik smiled. "Not the gym. The old court. Neighborhood one. No scoreboard. Just cracked concrete and a crooked net." Elon chuckled, sipping his coffee. "You really want your final game before college to be on a busted city court." Malik stood and grabbed his basketball from beside the door. "Only if you're playing." Elon blinked. "Me?" "You promised me once," Malik said. "Back when I caught you watching game tape and said you probably had a terrible jump shot. You said, better than you think." He spun the ball in his palm. "Let's find out." An hour later, they pulled into a side street just outside the city park. The court sat at the edge of a grove of trees, its boundaries barely painted, the chain link fence curling at the edges. The net hung on by zip ties, frayed and uneven. A water fountain coughed at the corner. But to Malik, it was perfect. They were alone. No other players. No cameras. Just the breeze, the sound of tires crunching on gravel, and the distant hum of traffic a few blocks away. Malik dribbled first, letting the ball bounce naturally on the uneven pavement. He ran his palm along the surface of the ball like it was a memory. Elon stood at the free throw line, hands on hips, squinting at the backboard like it was mocking him. "I don't exactly have a jump shot," Elon muttered. "Just play," Malik said, passing him a ball. Elon caught it. The ball felt foreign in his hands, like holding a tool from a life he never learned. He dribbled once. It bounced back higher than expected, hitting his thigh. Malik grinned. "Gotta get low," Malik teased. "Legs, not hands." "Noted," Elon said. He squared his shoulders, bent his knees slightly, and released a shot. Air ball. The ball sailed a good foot to the left, landing with a soft thud in the grass beyond the court. Malik doubled over laughing, hands on his knees, wheezing. "I'm pretty sure gravity cheated," Elon said with mock seriousness, walking after the ball. They played for an hour. Not seriously. Not even really competitively. They passed. They shot. They chased rebounds that bounced down the hill. They joked about Elon's form, which resembled someone trying to swat a fly. Malik showed him how to use the backboard, how to position his feet, how to fake a crossover. Elon, despite the embarrassment, never stopped smiling. The sun dipped lower behind the trees, casting long shadows across the court. The orange glow made everything look cinematic, unreal, like time itself had slowed down to watch. At one point, Malik called out, "1-on-1. First to 5. No scorekeeping, though." "Isn't that contradictory?" Elon asked. "Not if you're playing just to play," Malik replied, spinning the ball and passing it with a soft bounce. So they played, not as coach and player, not as billionaire and foster kid, not as headlines or stories or saved souls. Just two people on cracked pavement, finding joy in the bounce of a ball and the quiet understanding that neither of them would have made it here without the other. When they finally stopped, they both sat down on the edge of the court, legs stretched out, backs against the fence. Sweat clung to their shirts, and the ball rested quietly between them. Malik looked at the trees, swaying gently in the breeze. "Thanks," he said. Elon didn't look at him. He just nodded. "You earned it." I mean, Malik said, voice softer now, for seeing me when I didn't even know what there was to see. Elon turned to him, expression steady. I didn't see potential. I saw presence. You were already there. You just needed time to build your launch pad. Malik looked down at his shoes. He kicked at the dust near his heel. This was the best game I've played, he said after a moment. No crowd, no pressure, just motion. Elon stood and dusted off his hands. Then let's leave it here. Unfinished. Malik grinned. Like a promise. Like a good story. They walked back to the car, ball under Malik's arm, light trailing behind them like the end of summer. They didn't speak on the drive home, because the silence said everything. The sky was still dark when Malik zipped up his duffel bag. No alarm, no fanfare. Just the quiet discipline he'd carried with him for as long as Elon had known him. He moved through the house like a whisper, pausing briefly in each room, not to linger, but to take a final mental snapshot of the spaces that had shaped him. He wore his favorite navy hoodie, the one with the small tear in the left sleeve, and a pair of scuffed sneakers he refused to throw away. Slung over one shoulder was his bag, light but tightly packed. In his other hand, he held a flat, black case, Elon's old tablet. It wasn't just any tablet. It had been wiped, reconfigured, and loaded with a custom AI Elon had programmed in the weeks leading up to Malik's departure. It responded to his voice, helped structure study sessions, corrected essays, even ran simulations for decision-making exercises. Elon had named it Ether, not after a myth, but as a reminder that Malik's ideas didn't need gravity to be valid. They just needed space to rise. They stood in the driveway just before dawn, the morning mist still hanging low over the asphalt. The car that would take Malik to the airport waited quietly, engine humming. Neither of them said much. Elon extended his hand. Malik looked at it, then pulled it into a quick hug, tight and unceremonious, the way boys say what they're not yet ready to speak. Text when you land, Elon said. I will. And don't forget. I know, Malik cut in, smiling. Sleep. Hydrate. Breathe. Elon smirked. And keep building. Malik nodded once. Then he climbed into the back seat, the door shutting with a soft click. A few moments later, the car disappeared into the fog, tail lights fading like embers. Elon stood there a while, hands in his pockets, the air cool on his face. It was strange, this stillness. Not just outside, but inside, too. He hadn't realized how much noise Malik brought into the house. Not volume, but energy. Weight. Pulse. When he finally walked back in, the house felt different. Not empty, just paused. He made his way to the guest room. No longer guest, really. It had become Malik's room. The bed was made. Sheets folded. Desk cleared. But the air still carried his imprint. The faint smell of cedar from the soap he used. The slight indentation in the rug where he used to stretch before practice. Elon stood in the doorway, uncertain. He wasn't sure what he expected: to feel proud, to feel at peace. But all he felt in that moment was quiet, and the silence was loud. He stepped into the room and looked around. A few books remained on the shelf, neatly arranged. One was bookmarked halfway through, The Art of Systems Thinking. Elon smiled faintly. Malik always meant to finish it, but life had moved faster than chapters. Then, just as he was about to leave, something caught his eye. Beneath the edge of the bed, barely visible under the frame, was a small, tightly balled-up sock. The same one Malik had used the night they first met in the kitchen, bouncing it like a basketball when the world had felt uncertain and everything familiar had been ripped away. Elon crouched down and picked it up, holding it in both hands. It was worn now, stretched and faded, but it carried memory. Not the kind stored in cloud servers or hard drives. The kind built from human repetition. A ritual object. A talisman. He sat on the edge of the bed, sock ball in hand, and let the moment settle. Sometimes legacy isn't in blueprints or patents. It's not the launch dates or the headlines. It's in the quiet things. In the choice to listen when it would have been easier to walk away. In the decision to open a door and point to a passenger seat. in a makeshift ball left behind, not forgotten, but placed just so, like a thank you without a note. Elon didn't cry, but something inside him softened, cracked, like a shell no longer needed. He stood, gently set the sockball on the desk, and looked around once more. He didn't redecorate. He didn't turn the room into a home office or a guest suite. He left it clean, open, ready, because maybe one day someone else would need a space to breathe. A room where they didn't have to earn their right to exist. A place where silence wasn't a punishment, but a promise. And Elon, who once believed legacy lived in the stars, now understood that sometimes it lives in the pause between lives. In the echo of footsteps no longer heard. In a room once full, now peacefully still. Autumn arrived with sharp light and brisk winds. The kind of air that made you walk a little faster, breathe a little deeper. On the surface, Elon's calendar hadn't changed. Product meetings, innovation panels, boardroom debates. But something in him had. The silence of Malik's old room had become a kind of meditation. A place he passed by daily, glancing in but never stepping past the threshold. Then came the invitation. A prestigious university, one of the few Elon still admired for its refusal to commercialize brilliance, asked him to deliver a keynote at their annual engineering symposium. He would speak on adaptability, systems thinking, and the future of intelligent design. The usual talking points. What they didn't know, at least not initially, was that the keynote would fall on the same weekend as the university's first home basketball game of the season. Elon accepted the invitation. He arrived quietly, as always. No entourage, no red carpet, just a black jacket, dark jeans, and a well-worn messenger bag that held more notepads than electronics. He spoke to students over coffee in the faculty lounge, signed autographs in hallways he didn't linger in. But when the time came to step on stage, something shifted. The auditorium was packed. Hundreds of eager minds, professors, tech leaders, and students whose faces glowed under the soft light of phones they barely put down. Elon stood at the podium, outlined by sleek slides and a minimalist logo. He began his talk with precision, speaking on the architecture of decision-making, the illusion of control, and how sometimes the smartest systems are the ones that know when not to act. Then came the canned A. A student in the back, earnest, clearly nervous, stepped up to the mic and asked, "Mr. Musk, with everything you've built, what do you consider your greatest project?" The room stilled. Elon blinked. He didn't look at his notes. He didn't fill the space with jargon or humor. He just stood there for a moment, letting the question sink in. Then he said plainly, "A young man who taught me the power of listening." There were murmurs in the room. Some looked puzzled. Others turned to whisper. He didn't say Malik's name. He didn't have to. Those who knew, knew. That afternoon, he made his way to the campus gym, a sleek facility with state-of-the-art floors, digital scoreboards, and banners boasting decades of athletic legacy. But he wasn't here for legacy. He was here for presence. He entered quietly and climbed the bleachers, choosing a spot halfway up. Not courtside, not press row, just enough elevation to see everything. The team was warming up. Sneakers squeaked. Balls thudded against the floor in rhythmic succession. Students filed in, energy building. Elon scanned the court. Then he saw him. Malik, wearing the university's colors, deep maroon with white accents, number 11 stitched clean across his back. He moved with sharper edges now, leaner muscle, quicker footwork. But the core of him hadn't changed. He was still measured, still calm, still present. There was no flash in his warm-up, no overdone moves, just repetition, control, breath. Elon watched as Malik paused at the free throw line, bounced the ball twice, and released a shot that dropped clean through the net. No reaction, no fist pump, just a reset and another shot. The game began with ceremony, introductions, lights dimmed, music blared. But Elon wasn't watching the noise. He was watching Malik. By the second quarter, the game was close. Both teams played hard, physical basketball, but with strategy layered underneath. Malik ran point for a few plays, directing traffic with subtle gestures, never shouting. He made his teammates look better, found open lanes others didn't see, rotated on defense like clockwork. Then it happened. A defensive rebound, a quick outlet pass. Malik sprinted down court, received the ball at the top of the arc, and without hesitation, rose up for a three-pointer. Swish. Elon clapped. Just once. That was all. No roar. No standing ovation. Just a single, precise recognition. The same kind of gesture you make when a spacecraft hits its trajectory. When something you helped launch finally orbits on its own. He didn't cheer the loudest, but he felt it the deepest. Because this wasn't about the crowd. It never had been. This was about the quiet work. The unseen hours. The choices made when no one was watching. It was about the boy who once bounced a softball in a silent kitchen now commanding space on a Division I court. When the game ended, Elon didn't wait for interviews or locker room congratulations. He stood, took one last look at the court, and made his way down the steps, unnoticed in the rising tide of cheers. Outside, the sun was setting over the quad. Students laughed, huddled together in small groups. The air smelled like leaves and possibility. Elon walked slowly, hands in his pockets, the cool air wrapping around him like an old coat. Somewhere behind him, Malik was probably talking to a coach or a teammate, maybe texting someone back home. But Elon didn't need to say anything, because this wasn't the end of anything. It was just a different stage. The house was quiet when Elon returned. Not the empty kind of quiet, but the kind that greets you with a pause, as if the walls themselves are waiting for you to notice something. He set down his keys, loosened the collar of his shirt, and walked into the study. The air smelled faintly of cedar and dust, books unopened for weeks, the kind of silence you don't break with music. And then he saw it. An envelope sat neatly in the center of his desk. No stamp, no return address. Just his name, Elon, written in deliberate, familiar handwriting across the front. Black ink, centered, no flourish. He stared at it for a moment, not suspicious, not anxious, just intrigued. He picked it up carefully and slid a finger under the flap. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded once. Heavy stock, not printer paper, not casual. He unfolded it and read, "Thanks for seeing me before the world did. You taught me how to build more than a game. You helped me build a life. I'm not done playing, just getting started. Malik." That was it. No PS, no date, no details about games or classes or the latest stat line. Just that. Elon stood there, holding the letter like it was more fragile than it looked. His fingers traced the signature, the loop of the M, the clean slant of the final K. It wasn't the words that caught him, it was the timing. Because just the day before, he had watched Malik step onto a university court with the kind of presence that made even seasoned coaches lean forward. There had been no conversation after the game. Elon had left early, choosing to let Malik bask in the moment without a shadow looming behind him. And yet, this letter, this note, it was more than gratitude. It was a signal. He turned slowly, walked over to the display shelf in the corner of the study, the one most visitors never noticed. It held relics not from press releases or investor calls, but from personal victories. The first circuit board he soldered as a teen, the cracked glass from an early Starlink prototype, a faded name tag from a Zip2 demo he once gave to a room that barely looked up. And beside those was an old sketch of the Falcon 1, drawn on graph paper, ink faded from time. Not beautiful, but real. Lines imperfect, corners smudged from overuse. Elon stared at it for a long time. Then, without ceremony, he folded Malik's note gently and placed it beside the sketch. Two pieces of paper, two kinds of flight. He stepped back and let the moment wash over him. Because something clicked in his mind, not a technical calculation, but an emotional alignment. He had built rockets, yes. He had pushed metal and fire toward the edge of atmosphere. But this was a different kind of trajectory. With Malik, there were no blueprints, no simulations, just instinct, patience, and trust. He hadn't launched him. He had lifted him. And somehow, without planning it, Malik had lifted something in return. A weight Elon hadn't even known he was carrying. Not guilt, not duty, something more human. Purpose. Because for all the systems Elon had designed, for all the code he debugged and engines he'd optimized, the act of helping someone reclaim their breath, rebuild their identity, and rewrite their future, had no equation. No formula, just choice. He returned to his desk and sat, the room dim now as the sun slipped behind the house. Outside, the wind rustled the trees gently, like the world itself was exhaling. He didn't open his laptop, didn't check his messages. He simply sat, letter to his left, rocket sketch to his right. Two paths, same truth. Sometimes you build for the sky, other times you build for the soul. He thought back to that first night, the bus stop, the soaked hoodie, the hesitation before Malik climbed into his car. No questions, no promises, just a door left open. And now, all these months later, this single sheet of paper had more gravity than any launch pad he'd ever stood on. He smiled quietly, not the performative smile, not the one polished for interviews or staged for headlines. This was the kind of smile that comes from within, from recognition, from completion, from knowing you changed someone's orbit not with force, but with presence. Legacy, he realized, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's handwritten, folded, left without a name on a desk that rarely feels sacred. He stood again, walked to the hallway, and passed by Malik's room. Still tidy, still untouched, but this time he stepped inside. And just for a second, he imagined the room filled again, not with noise, but with the energy of someone learning to become who they were always meant to be. He whispered softly, as if the walls still remembered, "Keep building." Then he turned out the light. The years moved on, but the memory of Malik never faded from Elon's world. If anything, it deepened. Not in the way most people would expect, not in speeches, not in investor calls, not in tributes or documentaries. Elon didn't chase credit. He didn't market the connection, but he followed the trajectory. Quietly, intentionally. Malik had gone pro in his third year. Not a lottery pick, not the face of a franchise, just a steady, respected player who made others better. Coaches loved him. Teammates leaned on him. Fans? They didn't chant his name in stadiums, but in communities, he became something bigger than a highlight reel. Elon, now posting less about launches and earnings, had shifted. His feed on X, still followed by millions, had evolved. Fewer announcements about Mars simulations. More snapshots of school robotics teams. Fewer retweets of stock surges. More stories about overlooked talent in small towns. One afternoon, he posted something simple, a grainy video clip from someone's phone. No camera crew, no filters. The caption read, "Watch this." The footage showed a dusty gym in a rundown neighborhood, the kind of place where the lights flickered and the bleachers creaked with age. Kids ran drills in mismatched sneakers. No jerseys, no sponsors. And at the center, holding a whistle and commanding the chaos with calm, was Malik. Older now, mid-20s. Taller, stronger, with deeper lines near his eyes and a quiet ease in his shoulders. He wore a plain gray t-shirt, black sweatpants, and a baseball cap turned backwards. No branding, no logo, just movement and presence. He was crouched down, eye level with a boy no older than 9. The kid had just missed a layup and looked devastated. Malik placed a hand on his shoulder, spoke softly. "You know what matters more than the miss?" he asked. The boy shook his head. "That you came back down the court," Malik said. "That you kept moving." Later in the video, another kid, maybe 13, asked him during a break, "Why do you help us?" Malik paused, then smiled. "Because someone helped me." That moment, simple, unforced, real, went viral. Within hours, it had been shared across every platform. Not just by sports pages, but by teachers, youth leaders, tech engineers, even anonymous accounts who never posted anything before. It spread not because it was dramatic, but because it was true. People saw it and felt seen. Elon reposted the clip. He added just one line. "I didn't build him. I just gave him a place to begin." It became one of his most liked posts ever. Not for the algorithm, for the honesty. Over the next week, interviews were requested. TV crews showed up at the youth camp. Corporations offered Malik endorsements, funding, partnerships. He turned most of them down. "This isn't a brand," he told one producer. "It's a promise." Instead, he expanded the camp, not with flashy buildings, but with purpose. He partnered with local mentors, hired former players who never made it, but still had wisdom to share. He brought in nutritionists, therapists, engineers. He gave kids tools for life, not just the court. And through it all, he remained anchored, grounded, because he remembered the softball, the first room that didn't expect him to be small, the drive in silence with a man who never forced him to speak, and the moment he missed a shot that cost a playoff game, only to hear, "Keep building." Elon watched it all unfold. He didn't intrude, didn't offer advice unless asked. But every so often, a text would come. "You'd be proud of them today. One kid solved a Rubik's Cube faster than me. Remember when you shot an air ball from the free throw line?" To which Elon always replied, "Still better than my layup." One day, a journalist asked Elon at a live event, "What's the most important thing you've ever launched?" He smiled, looked out over the crowd, then said, "A conversation." They blinked, unsure. A conversation that said, "You matter, even before the world agrees." That's how we really change orbits. In private, Elon kept the letter Malik wrote him years ago inside a glass frame on the bookshelf. Beside it, the original Falcon 1 sketch. And on the shelf above, a photo, two figures on a cracked city court, laughing under a golden sky. No crowd, no score, just the game. Years passed. The world spun on. Not every rocket launched. Not every player won titles. But sometimes the quiet ones, the ones who were seen before they were celebrated, built something stronger than fame. They built echoes. And if you listen closely, long after the gym lights dimmed and the noise faded, you could still hear it. The bounce of a softball on kitchen tile. The voice of a man who decided to stay. The whisper of legacy, not shouted, but lived. If you've made it this far, you felt something. So here's a little favor. Drop the name of your city in the comments. Doesn't matter where you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story traveled. And if any part of Malik's journey hit home for you, tell me. Just a sentence, a moment, a memory. I read everything, and your words mean more than views ever could.